Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. My name is Judith. I'm a registered nurse and a medical virtual assistant. And in today's video, I'll be walking you through medical billing, and we'll be using a free trial EHR for this demonstration. Okay. Now, before we get started, I do want to explain to you a few things. Let me explain what medical billing is all about. Okay. Medical billing is just a process that enables clinics or providers get reimbursed for the care they have rendered to the patients. Okay, and there are different ways this can occur. But before that, I want to explain to you the criteria for medical billing. The first is that the appointments must have been scheduled. Okay, the second criteria is that the visits must have happened. The third criteria is that this patient has an active insurance, okay, that you can use to bill if the patient is paying with their insurance. And the fourth is that the documentations must have been done where the patient has an active diagnosis, okay. You don't bill a patient that has not been seen by the provider, okay. Now, let's get started. So suppose we want to perform medical billing for this patient, Michael Dio, as you can see, that had the appointment on the 23rd of June 2026. Okay. Now, before I take you through this patient's profile to perform the medical billing for that patient, I do want to let you know that there are three different ways a patient can be billed for a service that was rendered to them by the clinic. The first way is billing insurance. So most times when you want to define medical billing, it defines it as a process of translating the patient's visit into a claim. Okay. So the first way a patient can be billed is through their insurance company. This is a process where the clinics creates a claim that will be submitted to their insurance company, and the insurance company will reimburse the clinic for whatever services they have rendered to the patient. Okay. Now the second way a patient can be billed is by self-pay. So the patient in this case doesn't have an insurance. They come in for a visit and they pay the clinic for the services that was rendered to them by themselves. Okay, this case, the patient pays their bills by themselves. Okay, now the third way a patient can be billed in the clinic is through a super bill. So in the case of a super bill, the provider is out of network with the patient's insurance company. Okay, in this case, the patient pays for their visits. Now a super bill is created for this patient, and the patient uses this super bill to get reimbursed by their insurance company. So this is the patient that gets reimbursed, okay, not the clinic. Meanwhile, the patient has already paid the clinic for the visits that has already happened. Okay, now let's go ahead and perform medical billing for Michael Dio. For us to perform medical billing for Michael Dio, most times in every EHR, you get to the patient's chart first. Okay, so let's do that. You click here on Michael Dio. Let's go ahead and visit his profile. Okay, now we are in Michael Dio's chart in the EHR. Okay, most times when you get to an EHR, you will see different tabs on the patient's chart. Okay, the first thing you do is to navigate the billing part of the chart. Okay, now for this case, this is the billing part of Michael Dio's chart. Now, when you click on the billing, you will see payments. If there was any payments that has been made by these patients, you will see it here. Now, this is invoices, this is super bills. So this is more like a self-pay. If a patient is paying by themselves, you create an invoice. Now, if the patient has a card on file on their profile and the clinic wants to bill the patient for whatever reason, an invoice must be created. Okay, so let me remind you that not every EHR system has a tab for invoice like this. They mostly have a super bill and CMS 1500s. Okay, now in this case, the clinic can use another means for creating an invoice for the patients for whatever reason they want to bill the patient. Now, let's say we want to create an invoice for Michael Dio for their copay. Okay, all you have to do is to click on invoices. Okay, and you create one. So let's do that. When you click on invoices, it brings this tab for you. Or some other EHR system are straight to the point. Okay. Now you click on create invoice. So when you click on create invoice, we are creating an invoice for an appointment. So when you click on appointments, now it will show you the sender, which is the provider or the clinic, and the recipient, which is Michael Dio. And it will also show you the appointment that you want to bill for. Okay. For this case, let's select the appointment. So this is the appointment that we are billing a copay for. And let's say the amount of the copay is $50. Now, suppose the clinic wants to discount any amounts for these patients, or they want to write off these payments for these patients, okay? You click on this write-off reason here, select the reason for the write-off, okay, and the amount here, okay? But in this case, we are not writing off for these patients. If you have any additional notes that you want to put here, you can put any additional notes as per your clinic, okay? And once you've done that, you click on create. It's usually simple to create, nothing too difficult about creating an invoice. So let's look at what this invoice looks like. This is what it looks like. If you wanted to customize it, you could have customized it from the time you were creating it, okay? Let's go back to what we were doing. You could as well send this invoice as an email to Michael Dio, or you download it and upload it to the patient's chart. Now we are back on the patient's chart, okay? And as you can see, this invoice appears here on the patient's profile. Now let's say we want to create a super bill for the patient. Now, for super bills, I want you to know that it's more advanced than a normal invoice. It contains both the ICD-10 codes, the CPT codes, the patient's name, the provider's name, provider's MPI, and a whole lot of information, okay? And this information is what will be used to reimburse the patient. Okay, now let's create one. Now that we've clicked on super bills, okay, what you do is to click on create new super bill, or this new super bill here. For some other EHRs, when you click on super bill, it just takes you straight to creating the super bill, okay? So I want to tell you that everything in this EHR regarding the patient's billing is always the same. The only thing is that there might just be a little layout issues, okay, but they are always the same. You just have to find where they are in the EHR, okay, or where they are in whatever system or whatever tool that your clinic use, okay? Now let's create a new super bill for this patient. Now, as you can see here, there is service and client information, there is provider information, there is referring provider information, that is if the patient was referred to your clinic, okay? There is the referring provider's information. Now there is the diagnosis of the patient, the billing items. This is where you include the CPT codes or any other codes, okay? And then we have other items, okay? Now this is it about creating a super bill. So let's create one. Now I do want to let you know that for some EHR systems, okay, when you click on create super bill, it automatically generates the patient's information and the provider's information. So you just have to put few other information and you are good to go, okay? So let's go ahead and create a mock super bill for Michael Dew. So in this case, we are assuming that there is no referring provider, okay? So we are skipping this. So in this billing item, this is the procedure codes, the units, how many of these procedure codes did the patient utilize? Okay, so we are putting one. Now, if that the procedure codes involves an injection or anything whatsoever, like this injection anesthetic agents, okay, if it was given two times, then that means you have to put 2 units of these procedure codes, okay? I hope that makes sense. So for fee, you have to put the fee for a new patient visit in your clinic. Sometimes for some other EHRs, this is auto-populated. Now, the diagnostic pointer for these procedure codes is the ICD-10 codes of these patients. Okay, let me explain. So it was because of this diagnosis that the patient had this new patient's visit. Okay, most times in medical billing, the ICD-10 codes and the CPT codes must be related. Okay, so you can have a diagnosis code that says the patient is having headache. Okay, and then you have a procedure codes of MRI. Okay, the ICD-10 codes and the CPT codes of a patient you are billing must make sense. Okay, they must be related. Okay, so that insurance will not flag it off or deny the claim. Okay, now if you have other items, this is where you get to add it. Okay, any payments, you add it. And after you're done with all of this, click on create super bill. As you can see, this super bill has been created for a patient, okay? So you can either edit this super bill, or you view it, or you email it to a patient, or you do any of these here, okay? Now let's create a CMS 1500 for this patient, okay? This is a process of creating a claim for the patient in your clinic. In this case, your clinic is the one sending out the claim to the patient's insurance company so that they will get reimbursed for the patient's visits, okay? So in super bill, you are sending it to the patients, and the patients will take it to their insurance company to get reimbursed after they have paid your clinic for the services rendered. For CMS 1500, the clinic itself is sending out that claim to the patient's insurance company so that they would get reimbursed for the services rendered. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's check this out. So it's also like the way we did for super bill. The first thing you will see here is you select the patient. Okay, like I said, for some other EHRs, it auto populates all of this information. Now let's type this patient's name. Now we select this patient. Now you get to input any of their details, check for any of their information that is not correct. Now if there is any referral information for this patient, you get to put that here. Okay, now you get to put the information of the rendering provider, which is your provider, and then the service facility, okay, which is your clinic. So we select that now. Now the billing provider, which is your provider, okay. Now you get to add the patient's insurance information, okay. Now this auto-populated because I have already added the insurance information of the patient when I was creating the patient, okay. Now it's already on the patient's profile, so it came here. Now this is the patient's insurance information, their primary insurance information. Now any miscellaneous information, so more like if this insurance is not coming from the patient. Now you also get to put pre-authorization number. So pre-authorization is more like taking permission from the insurance company before performing any procedure. So you add the pre-authorization number if there is any. In this case, we are assuming that there is none, okay, because this is just a new patient visit. Okay. Now, if the patient had any payments, you add all of those information here. Okay. So in this case, we are assuming not, but in creating a claim, you must always follow your clinic's protocol, and you must ensure that you create a clean claim. Okay. Clean claim is the claim that you create without any errors, without missing any information about that patient's visit. So this kind of claim is likely to be approved faster. Okay. Now, you add the diagnosis of the patient. Okay, this is auto-populated here. Now the billing items, you get to add the CPT codes. Okay, let's add new patient basis. Okay, you get to select the new patient visits according to the one that is related to the patient. Okay, so let's select this. Okay, and then diagnosis pointer. Like I said earlier, this diagnosis is the reason why this patient came for a new patient visit. Okay, now you add that here. Any other information you add, if there was any modifiers, you add it here. Okay, now after you are done, you review all the information of that patient, and then you get to save. And now, once you have saved and closed, you will see that you've created this claim for Michael Dio. Okay. So now you can monitor the status from here. Now, this status is showing that it's not being sent. Okay. Now, if it's been sent, you would see it. If it's being approved, you will see it. If it's being rejected, you will see it. Okay. For EHR systems like Dr. Chrono, once you do everything right, it automatically sends it to the insurance companies, and then you get to monitor it from the live claims feed when it's been approved and when it's been denied. Okay, so you don't have to do anything, you just have to monitor it and follow up accordingly. Okay, now I also want to let you know that in super bills, now when we created the super bill, we didn't add the payments for this patient. Okay, so now you know that in super bills, the patient will have to pay, and then you have to generate that super bill to the patient. So make sure to add the necessary things for the patients when you're creating a super bill. And also, when we created an invoice, we didn't add a payment for this patient. So suppose you want to write off a payment for this patient, okay? What you have to do is to click here, okay? Once you click here, you record an outside payment. So let's say if the patient has paid this $50. So all you have to do is to click on record payments, record outside payments. And once you do that, you click on record payments. And you will see that this payment has been made. And this is it about medical billing in the EHR system. I hope with this video you were able to have an idea of what medical billing is all about. Okay, I want to let you know that this medical billing, it differs per EHR. Okay, so but then it's always the same. You always get to create a claim by filling up all the important details, ICD-10 codes, the CPT codes, and the rest of them. And when it comes to a super bill, some other EHR system gets to generate it automatically after you've done the documentations, while others you have to fill up the patient's information like we did with this particular EHR. Okay, and the invoices for every EHR differs. So it depends on how it's being built. Remember, I told you that most things that happen in the EHR systems are almost the same. The only thing is the layouts. There might be a little layout difference, but it's always the same. So I want you to know that with this video, you can be able to do medical billing as a medical virtual assistant. Thank you for watching and see you in my next one. Bye.